Hi, hello, and welcome to my video recapping my first week of treatment with Spravato. I've had a hard time finding firsthand accounts of people who have undergone this treatment, especially people who have dissociative disorders, so thought it might be helpful to share my own experience of undergoing treatment. That's Miss Finn, by the way. Miss Finn. She's busy looking at stuff. I've had depression for over 20 years, and I've tried just about every antidepressant there is without any kind of meaningful improvement. So I've been diagnosed with treatment-resistant depression. Aside from antidepressants, I also did TMS last year, which did seem to help a little bit, but still pretty depressed. So now I'm trying Spravato. I am currently taking Wellbutrin and mirtazapine in the evenings to help me go to sleep, which has actually helped quite a bit. And I also take Adderall for ADHD. So those are the medications I take. Antidepressants mainly work by increasing the neurotransmitters serotonin, dopamine, and/or norepinephrine in the brain. Spravato, or esketamine, increases the levels of glutamate, which is the most abundant neurotransmitter in the brain, meaning it has a greater impact on more brain cells at one time. The way treatment goes is that for the first month, you do it twice a week. The second month, you do it once a week. And then after that, you do it every other week until you've completed a full course of treatment. I don't think there's a set amount of time as to how long you do it. I think it's just kind of up to the provider as to when you're done. But as far as I know, that's a pretty standard course of treatment. Don't take my word on it. I'm not a doctor. As promising as Spravato is, I know it's not a miracle drug. It's not going to magically cure my depression, although I am very hopeful that I will get some meaningful improvement from it. So, to try to give myself the best chances of success, I've decided to make some lifestyle changes. I haven't been told by anyone to do these things or that any of these things are going to have an effect at all. They're just things I've chosen to do. As I undergo treatment, I am staying away from the news, politics, and true crime content, which really those are the three main things that I consume. I've also cut out caffeine, sugar, and cannabis. And the things that I've added now to my daily routine are things like drinking a lot of water, which I am horrible at. I'm chronically dehydrated, really struggling to get my recommended daily intake of that. But I've also added yoga and meditation, and also doing a 5-minute journal every day, which has been shown to help train your brain to look for positive things in your life. And I know from experience of doing it every day that it really does help. Anyway, let's move on to what treatment was like. I don't have any kind of history of drug use, other than cannabis. So I really didn't know what to expect, especially given the fact that I already have a dissociative disorder and it's a dissociative anesthetic. I'm going to do my best to try to walk you through it. When I got to the clinic, they first had me do a depression and anxiety assessment, which I'm going to be doing at every treatment. And I think I'm going to just share those because I can't really think of any other way to measure whether or not my symptoms are improving. Once I got back to the room where I was going to be getting treatment, they had me sit in this reclining chair, which was nice, and they took my blood pressure. After they got done taking my blood pressure, they brought me a model version of what is that even called? A vial? It's administered through a nasal spray. So whatever you call those things that have the nasal spray in them. Before you take the medication, there's 2 green dots on the back. And if you've administered each dose correctly, those green dots turn to white. And that's how they know you got the medication. So I did 1 pump into each nostril and then showed the nurse the thing so she could see I'd got the medication. Threw away the vial. I really should have figured out what those were called before I started filming this. After that first dose, I didn't really feel anything. And after 4 minutes, I believe it was, had passed, they had me do the second dose. And it was the same thing. One in each nostril, showed her that I had taken it correctly, and then threw it away. And again, I didn't know what to expect, but I just kind of sat there, and I remember asking them, like, am I supposed to be feeling something yet? And they said, no, not necessarily. After a couple more minutes went by, I started to feel like I was expanding. I don't really know how to explain it. I had my arms on the armrest of the chair, and I felt like the arms of the chair were inflating. And even though, I could see that they weren't, that's what it felt like. Once it started kicking in, though, it was really noticeable. Really hard to explain. I think the way that I described it to my boyfriend afterwards was that it felt like I was taking off in a small plane in intense turbulence, and was just, kind of like hanging on, like, okay, we're going now. Like, how much worse is this going to get? When is this going to stop? And it wasn't scary. I didn't like leave my body or anything. It just felt like something was going on, and it was pretty intense. After about, I would say 20 minutes, I think, it finally like leveled out, and it didn't feel like this intense, turbulent experience, but I was definitely not my normal self. I'd made a playlist to listen to prior to this, which I think was a very good idea. I'll share that in the description if you want to listen to it. In front of me, there was a TV that was playing nature scenes, and they said that I could change it to whatever I wanted, but I was really enjoying the nature scenes, so I just left it there. I was way more lucid than I was expecting. Again, I'd only ever really heard accounts from people who did the IV method, which sounds like it's way more intense, like people full on leaving their bodies. That didn't happen. I was still very much in my body, still very much aware of my surroundings, but just in this other state of mind, I guess is the best way to put it. And I just remember watching all of these nature scenes, and at one point, like, it panned through some flowers in a field, and I remember feeling like I was the breeze going through the flowers. Another time it was showing mountains, and I wanted to hug the mountain, and I was just awestruck at how beautiful the earth is and how wonderful life is. And those were very new feelings to me. Again, I've had depression for as long as I can remember, and I don't normally feel that kind of stuff. So that was nice. I remember thinking that the way that we live our lives is so unnatural and unhealthy, and that's why we're sick and depressed all the time. And came to the conclusion that I wanted to live in a small village on the side of a mountain. Okay. I remember coming to the realization that meditation is very important. That we go through our lives very hyper-focused on a small and relatively insignificant part of our lives, and that meditation helps us understand who and what we really are and what's important. Still haven't meditated since, but I remember thinking that was really important. After about an hour, it started to taper off a little, at least to the point where I felt like I could actually get up and move around, and I realized I needed to use the bathroom. So got up and did that, and I remember washing my hands and thinking that the hand soap smelled so good. Like, I came back into the room like sniffing my hands, like, oh, the hand soap smells so good. Anyway, they just kind of laughed at me. And I went back and I sat in my chair, continued listening to my playlist, and watched the nature scenes. And about 15-20 minutes before it was time for me to leave, they took my blood pressure again, made sure that was all good, and I really quickly started coming back to normal. By the time I was ready to leave, I was pretty lucid in thought, but I could tell I was still kind of uncoordinated. Like, definitely would not want to have driven a car. And you're not supposed to drive. You actually have to have rides to and from these appointments. As I was walking out to the car where my boyfriend was waiting for me, I just remember feeling this level of peace that I don't think I've ever felt before. It was really nice. And I just remember that whole ride home, just feeling the sun on my skin and just feeling really good. And I was pretty excited about that. And that's pretty much how I felt for the next, I'd say 2 to 3 hours. It did slowly start to wear off through that time. And after 3 hours, I felt totally normal. They said to wait 3 hours after my appointment to take Adderall, which I was on the fence as to whether or not I was even going to do it. But you're supposed to take all of your medications as normal while you're getting treatment. So it's like, okay, at the very least, I'll just take my afternoon dose, which I did once 3 hours had passed. And after that 3 hours, I felt totally back to normal. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken it. Ugh. Why is my eye watering? Okay, hang on. I'm going to shut the window. There's all kinds of construction going on outside, and it's ruining my life. Where was I? Oh, right. So after that first treatment, I didn't really notice any changes. Not that I was really expecting to. And honestly, I don't know what to expect. I've had depression for so long that I don't remember what it feels like to not be depressed. Initially, I was pretty disappointed that I wasn't going to be starting treatment until the end of the summer because I live in the Pacific Northwest and I have pretty severe seasonal depression. So I would have preferred to do it over the summer, but I am interested to see if Spravato helps with my seasonal depression. I think that will be a pretty major indicator for me as to whether or not it's working. I also have PMDD, so we'll see if it helps with that. And yeah, the only thing that's been different is I've been having really vivid and I wouldn't say nightmares. I call them stressful dreams. Just really stressful situations. Been having those every night, which I know that's because I haven't been using cannabis at night anymore. So back to the vivid, stressful dreams all night. But other than that, no discernible changes from treatment after the first one. Because of how positive my first treatment was, I was really looking forward to my second one. Just could not wait. What I didn't know going into it was that I was going to be doing a higher dose this time. 3 of those vials instead of 2. Given how intense that first experience was, I was kind of anxious about doing more. And this second time, after the second dose, it seemed like the effects were coming on a lot faster. And by the time it was time to take the third dose, I was already blasting off in the plane and had a lot of anxiety about doing it and even hesitated, being like, I don't know if I should do this. Like, this is going to be a lot. But they reassured me, like, everything's going to be fine. And I knew, like, okay, yeah, it'll be fine. It's just going to be way more intense. So I did the third one, and totally different experience. I'm pretty sure I was having a panic attack the whole time, although I didn't really feel the panic. I could just kind of sense in my body that I was not relaxed at all. This time there was a different set of nature scenes playing on the TV. Some of them were scenes of like really reflective water that almost mirrored the sky, which normally looks pretty cool. But for whatever reason, they were freaking me out. Like, I could not discern where the water ended and where the sky began. And it just made it really hard for me to kind of get my bearings straight. So that was stressing me out. There were also scenes of horses running through water. And I remember being very concerned. Like, why are these horses running in water? Finally, I just asked the gal who was staying with me the whole time to please change it to something else. So she did. I remember having a hard time discerning whether or not the images I was seeing were actually of nature or if they were part CGI. It was just difficult. It was very difficult for me. At one point, I wondered if I was dying because I think I sensed I was really starting to dissociate from my body. And for whatever reason, probably because of my tremendous amounts of health anxiety, started to wonder if I was dying. Now, I think almost anyone who has used cannabis has had the experience of getting way too high and thinking that they're dying. This was nowhere near as bad as that kind of experience. I just kept reassuring myself that I was fine, everything's okay, and kept waiting for all of those good, peaceful feelings to kick in, and they never did. By the end of the first hour, I was already feeling pretty lucid, even though I had taken more of the medication. I think probably because of all of the adrenaline and cortisol that had been running through my veins the whole time. I mean, my body still felt off, but my mind was all there. When they asked me how it was, I told them, pretty miserable experience. And she said that some people just stick with the 2 doses throughout their treatment. And so I asked her, which is more beneficial? Staying at a lower dose and having a really positive experience, or doing the higher dose, even if it's not positive or as positive? And she said that really the higher dose is more beneficial, but that it wasn't necessary. Like, if it was just too much for me, I didn't have to do it. I could do the lower dose, but because the higher one is more beneficial, I decided I'm going to stick with the higher one, even though it's nowhere near as fun. I'm not saying all of this to try to scare you or try to tell someone not to do the higher dose. I'm just wanting to share what my experience was, and hopefully I'm conveying that even in the worst case scenario where it's a really terrible experience, it still wasn't bad enough to keep me from doing it again. I'm going to stick with the higher dose. In hindsight, I think I mostly just felt disappointment. I was really looking forward to having those few hours of feeling really good. And because I didn't, I think mostly I felt just disappointed. So after the appointment, I felt really back to normal after about 2 hours, although I still waited the full 3 before I took my dose of Adderall. And I had a pretty normal rest of the day. I did notice that I had a little bit of what I called background anxiety. Not anything to where it's really super noticeable, but I did realize, like, oh, I'm not really feeling very relaxed. Again, wasn't really anything that bad. Didn't have any trouble falling asleep that night. I did have the vivid, stressful dreams, though. And, yeah, here I am the morning after. I don't feel any different. Despite the negative experience, I am looking forward to my third treatment on Monday. I am going to do another update next week. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. If you liked this video or found it helpful in any way, please consider liking it. And if you want to keep getting these updates from me, don't forget to subscribe before you leave. If you want something else to watch, I did post a video about the ACE study a little while ago, and will hopefully be posting soon another video on depression, so you can check those out. Anyway, I think that's all for this video. I hope you have a great week, and I'll be seeing you next week.